Crimes of the Future is the new provocative film from director David Cronenberg, set in a future where human bodies are beginning to change. Today we'll offer interpretations of the themes and message of the film, and hopefully make some sense of it along the way. Welcome everyone to the Atomic Cinema Experiment. I am Peter, and I am joined as always by Tara.
Greetings, citizens.
This is a science fiction movie podcast. We get together, we have watched a sci-fi movie, we talk about it. It's really quite that simple. And on this week's episode, which is a little bit later than it should have been, but part of that was because it made sense to watch this movie twice. So we've both watched the movie twice. So let's get that out of the way. First and foremost, this is Crimes of the Future, which is the new film by David Cronenberg from this year. It is now available to rent and buy digitally and all that, which is why we finally had a chance to get to it, because a very limited, well, I don't know if it was a limited release in the US, but it didn't come out in the theaters here at all, so we had to wait. And so we're going to talk about it. We'll start spoiler free as we always do, and we'll try and decipher this Cronenbergian film, of which it very much is a Cronenbergian film. I'm going to stop saying that because it's really awkward to say, but you know what I'm getting at. There's no mistaking who's behind this one. So the premise of this is that we're obviously in a future of some kind, and how much do I explain and then cut off and say any more spoilers? I don't know. I will say that Viggo Mortensen's in the film, and he is this very... he's this individual that grows new organs, and him and his partner, played by Seydoux, do performance art where they cut out his new organs in front of people. The film deals with evolution, it deals with some environmental topics, it deals with topics related to artistry, and it mixes all these things up and has kind of a bleak but at times hopeful view of understanding the future of humanity. I think I'm right in saying all those things, and I feel like,
think so too.
Yeah, I think that's kind of sums it up as best as I can. Kristen Stewart's also in there in a smaller role, and it is provocative at times, and it does some weird things, but the weirdness does have some context the more the movie goes on, and you kind of understand what it's maybe getting at, or maybe you don't, but we'll find out as we talk about it. So that's the basic gist of it. So well, I'll probably try and keep most of the plot details until spoilers, because it is probably something you should just go into. Like, just know you're getting something a bit weird, you're getting something a bit cerebral, and just, you know, if you're familiar with Cronenberg, you've got an idea. So, Tara, how did you feel about Crimes of the Future?
I think I like it.
You think you like it?
No, I like it. Like, I like the movie, which is good because I paid like $25 for it.
Yeah. So I'm actually quite a hit and miss with Cronenberg. Like,
I don't have too much experience with them. Like, I'll just do my list real quick. I've
Sure.
only seen Dead Zone. I've seen,
which we did on the show.
Which we did, but I had seen that movie quite a lot growing up, and I had seen History of Violence, and I've seen The Fly, and I think that's it for my filmography.
Yeah, I like all of those for the right. Like, those are all hits for me. And I also quite like Shivers, and I love History of Violence. You mentioned that one, but I love History of Violence.
I did see Rabid also, which I think is pretty early.
Yeah, that's I saw the movie did before or after Shivers, but yeah, they were both like these 2 of these 70s movies. Obviously not all science fiction, but a lot of them are. Videodrome's pretty great. On the flip side though, like, I wasn't really into Naked Lunch when I saw that. I wasn't really into Eastern Promises, and I was really excited about that because that was the one that he did after History of Violence, so I was kind of disappointed by that one. If you want to see Viggo Mortensen wrestle a man butt-ass naked, then you may get something out of it. But
yeah, it's definitely on my my spreadsheet.
Your spreadsheet. So,
I did not care that much for A History of Violence.
Oh, I love History of Violence. I'll be curious to see. I mean, it's not a sci-fi movie, so we won't do it on the show. But like, I'd be curious to see if you revisit it at some point, maybe with a better appreciation for more Cronenberg. How you feel. I wonder if it'll be one that grows, because some of his films have grown in me more. Same with Paul Verhoeven. Paul Verhoeven's a director where I've really come to appreciate some of his work. I always loved RoboCop because there's parts of that movie that appeal to a young boy no matter what. But a lot of the other elements of that movie I've become more endeared to in my growing up, as it were.
Yeah, Verhoeven's a great example of watching it in two different times of life. You're like, wait a second, this is about something else.
And I think Cronenberg, because he does kind of like scratch it, not only the cerebral, but he does it through the lens of sex. He'll do it through the lens of like body horror, or he'll do it through the lens. He'll go through these different things, and I think that could be an example for you. Maybe not. I don't know. But
I definitely, I would say like one of the reasons I didn't like about History of Violence was I didn't like the sex. And they're two beautiful people. I should have loved the sex, but like I thought the sex was icky. And like sweaty and like not filmed in a way that was sexy. Like it was weird.
That's David Cronenberg sex. That's how Cronenberg thinks it should feel.
We get some Cronenberg sex in here.
Technically, yes. We get the new sex. Long live the new sex.
I think I'll say my favorite line in the movie. It's not a spoiler.
Okay.
Viggo Mortensen says, "Don't let it spill." That's a really good line.
Find out in spoilers what could be spilling. The answer may surprise you.
That was I don't know if there could have been a better line for that scene. It was great.
Yeah. So naturally, there'll be some mature like themes we're going to talk about, but I wouldn't say it's the soul thing we're going to talk about here. There's a lot of other things here. Yeah, I liked the movie, and I liked it the first time. I think I liked it even a little bit more the second time. But the mood, it's got this like sort of really distinct kind of brooding score with a bit of emotion in it. You might be surprised to notice Howard Shore, who did Lord of the Rings movies, who did the music for this, because very different, musical sound this has compared to Lord of the Rings. But maybe you wanted to do something a bit more. I guess we could call this art house. It's kind of art house.
Oh yeah, sure.
I'd be fair to call it that. So yeah, I liked it. I kind of viewed the movie through two different lenses as I was watching it. One was an environmental lens about the future and what humans might have to become because of like the world that we've built around us, and kind of the knock-on effect, and how we should adapt to what we've done rather than the planet adapting, and so on. And then the other lens is an artistic one, where I felt this was a very personal director film, where Cronenberg is talking about his own work and talking about who he is as an artist.
Yeah, I definitely picked up on that.
Yeah, there's a lot of that in there. So, and I think they're both very strong themes. Like, they're both there, like, it's very thick throughout the whole thing.
I actually kind of struggle with this one a little bit with the themes. They're both those themes are very prevalent in the film and very strong, but I feel like a lot of the messages are a bit muddled up, especially at the end. I don't really know exactly what the message is of the film.
I think we're going to spend probably at least 20 minutes of this whole thing discussing what the ending means and what we think we're taking from it. Because there's also some openness to it. There's definitely some openness to it.
I can't tell if it's a positive thing or a negative thing. Which is, I don't know, and I don't know which one Cronenberg wants me to feel.
It felt happy to me in the moment, but...
Yeah.
But we could do that.
It's also a little bit of like a Soylent Green ending. Not like with the... I mean, it'll make sense when you talk about it in spoilers, but like...
it's
a bit dire.
Don't worry, like, if you know the twist of Soylent Green, we're not saying it's got the same thing at all.
No,
but there is something like that. There is something in it that looks a little bit... Like, does you know in Soylent Green when they're eating the Soylent stuff? But the thing in this that's kind of reminiscent of that does look like it's purple, but it looks
like
similar.
Like a 1990s version of an energy bar or like a protein bar or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we'll talk about all that stuff. There's, like... even the opening shot of the film is like a ship that's capsized and is just in the water, and it's kind of ruining the beautiful ocean of wherever they are in the opening scene. And that opening shot hit differently when I'd already watched the film and I knew what it was going to go on to say and like explore. So all of a sudden, this image of this like, you know, rotting ship just sitting in an otherwise beautiful, you know, ocean view was like, oh, this image sets up like half the themes of the movie in like one simple visual, which is, you know, we have altered the planet. You know, not I mean, technology's part of it, but like more industry and like our use of things and everything we've done. Yeah. And it's not the last time you see imagery like that. There's a meeting place later on where Viggo's meeting up with someone in like it's like a shipyard where there's just tons of like, you know, derelict ships just lying around and they're all kind of rotting and stuff. So and even where he lives, it's like is it a lighthouse like him and Lea Seydoux live in? Something like that.
Oh, I couldn't tell.
It's actually. Like it's a tower of something. It's like an old school tower of some kind. I thought it might be a lighthouse, but
you know, they're definitely looking over the water.
Yeah, it's very industrial feeling though. It feels kind of run down. Like, yeah, they're keeping it in good condition because they live there, but like when you look at the outside and it feels kind of nihilistic when they're walking outside, you know.
I do like the we don't really know how far into the future this is, but
very vague.
I kind of like that. Like modern technology is nowhere to be seen. Like nothing seems to be electronic. Everything's gone back to like files and books and traditional forms of communication. But then you get these devices that you see that are very high tech, but also very like organic.
Well,
that's what I was going to say. Cronenberg, but
that's what I was going to say. You were saying that like all this technology seems to be missing, but I was like, yeah, but the bed has software, so like the bed has like computer elements to it, but it looks very organic. It looks very Giger-esque. I would describe it as, to be honest, if I was to give it a word. So there is technology. There absolutely is, but just stylistically, not the
kind that you would expect from the future we live in now.
No, but I think stylistically, they like this was like just a choice visually, more than anything, really, just to give it this kind of this feel. Like almost people have had to like sort of pare back in some of this stuff, perhaps for various reasons. But I think those visuals of like the chair he sits in when he's eating his bed, which is this like organic looking like seashell thing.
It's like a walnut that's been opened up.
Oh yeah, okay, well I can see walnut, yeah. Those visuals, like that's the only thing I really remember, because the trailer was just a bit of a mind trip where I'm like, what the hell is this movie? And that was the one visual I remembered, was this bed. You know, I didn't know it was a bed in the trailer, but like in the movie, so this is a bed. Okay, right, that's what this thing is.
The SART?
No. The SART's the thing they use for the show.
Their instrument, yeah. So it's you mean the walnut bed?
With the walnut bed, yeah. Yeah.
With the tubes.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's the bed. Yeah. There's the SART's what was it? The autopsy machine, basically. But yeah, it's this company that makes this stuff, and there's a couple of like mechanics from it that pop up in the movie that show up, and so there's all these little bits of world lore that are kind of implemented, and it's a really fleshed out world, no pun intended. But at the same time, it feels like it does leave a lot open to the imagination as to how the world is and works. Like, it sets up the things it needs to, but lets your imagination kind of fill in a lot of blanks to sort of stop it from being like really nailed down, which I think works in the context of what this is, because it has this kind of like, it's the future, but it could be any time in the future. This could be 1,000 years in the future. It could be 5,000 years in the future, and we have no idea.
Yeah, I guess it kind of reminds me of Dune in that way, where we see, technology that is clearly very advanced from where we are now, but they also still have, books. Nothing's being kept data-wise in like a machine somewhere that people can access. Yeah. So it does feel like technology has skipped, but like some things are just so reliable, like paper and pen.
Yeah. I wonder if there's more of a thematic reason than that, though. Than like the logic of like that. Like, I wonder if it's like a privacy thing, like, oh, we need to stay off the network, so paper and pen doesn't go into a system that can be accessed. It's like, if you want this information, you need to break into the filing cabinet and get it.
But that does feel like far future, right? When machines don't feel like Like they basically run themselves, but then everything like bookkeeping wise is kept something that's older technology, and that does feel like maybe the people who invented all this stuff got things right, and now they just run themselves, and we don't have to worry about it, and people don't remember how to do that stuff anymore because it's just so many generations ago, stuff like that.
Yeah. Although it's worth mentioning, like I said, there's like mechanics for these like fancy devices that do come and fix them and update them.
I was thinking more about Dune in that comparison, but this does feel almost like a Dune future.
Yeah, a little bit. I'd say it feels
of old and new.
It kind of, I think the tone for me veers almost. I don't want to quite say David Lynch. It does feel Cronenberg, but there was definitely a feel when the music was like sort of playing as they were walking out of their lighthouse home or whatever it is for the first time, and I was like, I'm almost getting like a Razorhead kind of feelings from like this world that he's in.
I've not seen that.
So I don't know. Like, it was just a slight feeling, but it's been a while since I watched the Razorhead, admittedly. But I was getting kind of this just this lonely, like nihilistic world, and this is a world where a lot of the population, because basically part of the plot is that people are evolving, and he's getting new organs, and apparently that happens to some other people too. He's turned it into kind of an art thing where taking it out is like part of his art show, his artistic performance. But part of this is also that a lot of people on Earth, and they never like give us like exact numbers per se, but a lot of people on Earth don't feel pain anymore. Like just pain's just gone. And in some ways, obviously, that's good because you don't feel pain. But on the other side, it's also like a warning system in certain situations if you feel pain. So if you don't feel pain, then, and because of that, there's a lot of like, people just like cut open themselves and do surgery on themselves because no one gets infections or pain anymore. So it's opened up this weird new, like, I don't know, not cult, but like, people doing performance art on their bodies with blades and shit. Yeah, it's just like
a curiosity. Did you ever have the surgery channel growing up? I don't know if that's a thing in the UK,
no.
but it's a thing in Canada where you can just watch people perform surgeries on TV. I saw a lot of, aneurysms, a lot of enlarged hearts, some things on foots that were cut off.
I never encountered this, no, I have to say.
I mean, there is a fascination with the human body, and we know Cronenberg has that fascination.
Oh, yeah, of course. Of course.
Yeah, I like the performance art aspect of this film the most. I think I like the stuff that is clearly like coming from Cronenberg, like showing you his insides as art, Yeah, I think I like that stuff the most in the movie, actually.
Yeah, there's that. There's the whole idea that like this causes great pain, and everyone keeps saying to Viggo like, "When have you got an idea for your next thing? Is your next organ grown yet?" And you can obviously imagine like a director saying, "Oh, what's your next project? You got something else cooking?" Like this idea, people are feeding off of him, and there's this pressure to like do the next thing. And like Viggo at multiple points in this movie questions like, and obviously the way he says it is kind of almost like a joke because it's not really creativity, but it's like, I wonder if my creativity is all dried up. Like, am I done making organs? And then you can imagine like Cronenberg as a director saying, am I done? Like, have I done all my ideas? Do people understand my art? Because that's the other thing, is at multiple points in the film, people say, is what you do to your organs, is that what you should be doing, or is that you like betraying the natural course of evolution? And I kind of took like there's people looking at their art as like taboo, is like, people think of Cronenberg's films that way. Like, yeah, he makes like well-made films, but some people do think they're disgusting, or that they're too extreme, or
too grotesque.
Yeah, like people have booed some of his films at Cannes or walked out or whatever, right?
Yeah, I heard he wrote this like 20 years ago too, and when he like dusted off the script, he didn't really change anything.
I think in a way you could tell, because like, there's nothing in it that needs to be thought of in the last 20 years.
Yeah, this isn't. But like he had this thought like 20 years ago in his career too. That's what I mean.
That's fair. Well, I almost wonder. So a bit of interesting trivia here, if you didn't know this already, for everyone, is one of Cronenberg's early films. It's only about 62 minutes long, but when I was looking up this movie just before we watched it, I discovered that he actually had a movie from the 70s, the early 70s, before he did Shivers, before he did Rabid, called Crimes of the Future. And I thought, oh, is this like, did he remake his own movie? And when I looked into it, it turns out that no, that is a sci-fi movie, but the premise of the film is there's nothing like this one. The only thing it shares with it is the name. And I thought, oh, that's a bit weird for someone to do, you know, for him to make that choice. But then when I watched the movie, I said, you know what, if the whole point of this is him reflecting on his career as a director, as an artist, him, I don't know if it's his first movie per se, but the idea of him taking the name of one of his first things that he ever did and calling that that, I'm like, okay, I get what he's doing. This is him being reflective and looking back at his body of work. And like, I don't know if he intends this to be his last movie. I don't know if he said he's retiring or anything. But if this is his last movie, it would be kind of perfect if it was, because it is kind of a, this is me, I've run out of things to say about other things, so this is me talking about being an artist and me wrapping up and tying a bow in my career. It could be, I don't know if it is. Maybe he's got something else in the works already. I don't know. But if it could be.
I like the little meta moment also of like, we see another version of like this performance art, and like Viggo comments on it, like, or someone asked him if it was any good, and he's like, yeah, if you like what is it, escapism or whatever, escapist mediocrity or something, I guess it's okay. It's kind of like a comment on other people's films.
Yeah, it was basically like, if you like dumb Marvel movies, you'll enjoy this.
That's what I got from it.
Yeah. And this does 100% it looks like a film. Like, I was captivated with the imagery the vast majority of the time. I thought the music was great. The performances, we can talk about them. Obviously Viggo's in here. He's kind of always in a bit of pain. You know, unlike a lot of the, like, Léa Seydoux character never feels pain. She's one of these humans that don't feel pain anymore. He does feel pain though. He's got like this special chair because he's having trouble digesting food, and he's in. So the idea of his bed and his chair is that they sort of like change and move to try and help him feel more comfortable. So it's kind of predicting like where his pain is. And it has this really like weird, like, you know, he's in this like almost chair looks like bones. It looks like it's made of bones and it's moving around. It looks
like something from like Texas Chainsaw Massacre house.
You know, it feels awkward, and you feel like the sound effects they've put in of like, you know, they're amping up the sound of he's like clearing his throat and like the little clicks and stuff as he's trying to like.
I like his performance a lot, actually. He just always seems like he's uncomfortable.
Oh, he does. Sometimes
even in his voice and stuff, it's just never not there.
I will say, because they're using like terms that are obviously made up for the movie, or they're like, you know, repurposed for the movie because it's this future world. I did end up turning the subtitles on at a certain point because he does mumble some things sometimes, and I was like, I need to read what he's saying.
I had the subtitles on the first time I watched it, and you know, I can't not look at them when they're on, and I found I needed it a lot for Kristen Stewart's character, but she talks so quickly in the film that the subtitles went away before I could even read them.
Yeah, she sort of talks quickly and quietly. She's got a very sort of snappy.
She's got a quirk. Yeah.
So, yeah, I thought she was good in her role. Actually, she kind of came across as this young, kind of inspired, like, but like maybe in a bad way, kind of character where she's kind of maybe taking the wrong messages. And I almost thought that was also Cronenberg sort of, you know, and I realized the irony of like reviewing this movie and like us saying, oh, this is what we take from his movie, is this is him criticizing people who take the wrong messages from his movie. So we might actually be the Kristen Stewarts of this if we're getting this completely all wrong. But
I talk way too slow to be Timlin.
Yeah, Timlin and Whippet is the guy. They work for this bureau that we'll talk about when we get spoilers. But yeah, she's there. Léa Seydoux. Yeah, she's good. She's got presence. She always has this kind of intense kind of stare, and not in like a intimidating way. There's definitely a lot of sweetness in her stare as well. But
she is into what she does, and I really liked their performances together. Though I really bought them as a couple who were just obsessed with art. Yeah.
You know, she used to be a surgeon, but then when he came in with like a problem at some point, that's how they met, and you know, they ended up becoming this like weird duo together. A lot of interesting ideas there with the performances. How did you feel about how the film looked? Like the world, the way it felt?
Oh yeah, it looked great. I mean, I enjoyed it a bit more the second time as far as like the looks of the film go. Because the first time watching it, I mean, I guess I knew what to expect a little bit, but like, you always have to like brace yourself for Cronenberg. You're just like, okay, what am I gonna get here? And the first time all the imagery's coming through and stuff, and you're like, okay, I get it, it's grotesque or whatever, but I got it a lot more the second time where I'm just like, I just bought the world a bit more now that I already experienced it.
Yeah, like I liked it a lot after the first viewing. I think I liked it just a little bit more the second time because I got used to what the world was. Like when they were casually mentioning things in the opening scene, I'm like, oh, this is the first time they actually mentioned this. But it was so much to take in on that first viewing that I wasn't really hearing some of the words. And whereas now I'm like, everything's kind of clicking in a way that's really working.
Yeah, I thought like the bed and the bone chair and stuff. I thought at first I'm like, I don't know if I'm like getting into this because it's almost not grotesque enough for me to be like, ugh, I can't look away. But it's also not that like, I don't know. It also can look a little bit silly at first. You're like, it's just a bit like a chair of bones. Like, what is this thing? But the second time around, I was like, oh, I like that it looks, organic because it kind of looks like bones, but like if there was flesh still on the bone, no muscle, just flesh, all tight and stuff. And it's like it makes sense for it to be something that looks organic if it's responding to the body, like an extension of something that the body needs. So it looks a bit like it's made out of a human body. So I liked it a lot more the second time, just getting used to everything.
Yeah, Viggo, when he goes outside, he wears like this black cloak and hood, and I'm not gonna lie, there's a couple of moments where he looks like he's trying to be a ninja. There's a moment when we're at the other performance, which we'll talk about in spoilers. When we first see him, he's sort of crouched down, and I was like, he's a ninja. He's actually crouched down like a ninja.
Yeah, I imagine it's because he's just in pain, but also the I kind of took that as like he's really like covering himself completely except for his eyes. And I guess that's just because his body is the art and like he has to hide it from everyone when he's not performing. Unless he's in like a, an intimate one-on-one scenario with somebody, he can like be himself. But like he always has to hide his body from the world because, that's his moneymaker. I kind
of took that as, I mean, you might be right, but I took that as more of like from the other side of it. I thought of it as a representation that he's kind of shut himself off from the world because he, like, there's like a political side to like things changing in the world, which he's kind of just staying out of for the most part. And the movies, the arc of the movie is really about him realizing that he should maybe take a side, and what side might he take by the end. And I kind of took the whole like constantly like covering his face up as him like just like not wanting to be a part of the world, but by the end maybe he is going to take a place in the world and like realize that he should have a place in it, kind of thing. Maybe I'm going a bit too fruity with that. I don't know, but
I mean, maybe I just thought that it was like his body is on display for his work reasons, so when he's not working he has to cover it up, so he's not spoiling what's to come.
Yeah, well, I think we will get to spoilers then, so we can actually talk about all the various scenes and ideas in the movie, because there's a lot to digest. So, full spoilers for the...
I can't believe he did that.
Full spoilers for the movie.
Lip smacking and everything. So proud.
I know when I've got a popper, okay? And I'm going to pop the audience. They loved that. I know they did. Well, the ones that seen the movie, they have anyway. I mean, if you haven't seen the movie, you probably wouldn't have got why that was funny. But, okay. So, where do we start with this? We got plastic eating. Honestly, the most disgusting thing in the movie is right at the start when the kid's eating the
wastebasket.
Yeah, the plastic bin. And just the sound of the crunching, I'm like, oh, my gag reflex was like, oh, like, not feeling that. But
I was curious what was going to happen because, like, the mom was like, "Don't eat anything you find in the beach, no matter what it is." I'm like a fish.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. You hear that and you think, "Oh, a kid's been told not to put things in their mouth," he's whatever. But then you get to like the next scene and he starts just eating this plastic as if it's like bread. And
yeah, he's like salivating. You see like drool come out of him and stuff.
Oh, which they explain later on, because when
they do. When you first watch it, you're like, ugh, he's really into this wastebasket.
Well, because I was actually thinking the first time I watched it, I was thinking in the scene, like, what, like, that kind of, the sound effect makes me think it is like plasticky, but like, how could the human chew plastic? That doesn't make any sense. But then later on, they explain that white like foam is actually like there to break down the plastic to make it softer for him to chew and digest it. I'm like, okay, all right, okay, they thought of that. Because I'm like, I don't think a human could actually pick up a plastic thing like that and bite into it.
Chomp down on it.
Yeah.
It would have to be probably pretty old plastic that's like sun damaged, so that's a bit more brittle or something like that. Yeah, otherwise it'd be pretty tough to chew through it. There is bacteria out there that can eat through plastic, but it's not something that we make and are so alive.
Well, obviously, yes. So then the mother suffocates the son. She has a pillow. She's staring at him like he's a monster, and then suffocates him with a pillow. Phones someone, says send what's his name, Scott Speedman's character, who's going to be Dautrice. It's like, send Dautrice over here, tell him that monster or creature he calls a son, his body's here. And we see him like find the body, and then we skip to Viggo Mortensen and everything. So it kind of leaves it on its own. Like we kind of get this weird, like really moody and well shot scene. Like I was really intrigued. But then it like jumps to the other stuff, and it's like, okay, we'll come back to that later. And it's like, okay, interesting. We'll see how that goes. And we're introduced to everything that Viggo and Lea Seydoux do. So I should probably use the names here. So he's Sol Tensor, so I'll say Tensor from this point on, and she is Caprice. And we see them examine his body with kind of an ultrasound style device. It's like, oh, you've got a new organ. There's new hormones in your blood, so there's a new organ growing. And it means we can do a show soon. But there's a new law coming out saying that weird organs that manifest, like people have to go and get them registered at the Organ Registration Bureau. So that's where they go early on, and we meet Whippet and we meet Timlin, who is the two people, Timlin being Kristen Stewart's character. And we get a lot of the exposition of the world here, where they're talking about why they're having to do this, and some of the key themes, like cutting it out, and like, why do you cut them out? And he's like, well, it's effectively like a tumor. Like, who wouldn't cut it out? Like, surely that's what we're supposed to do. And Timlin's clearly excited to meet them and kind of nervous about it. And they talk about how the world is changing, how there's no pain anymore for most people, things like that. We get a lot of this exposition here through that meeting. And we get the show. We get her cutting it out of him. She has this weird like controller where it's like a fleshy looking thing. Yeah, it's like a big fleshy bug that lights up in the places where the buttons are and where she's pressing it. And she takes out this organ that comes out of his body. It's just some random, and all these extra organs are just like chunks of flesh, or
they're just chunks of flesh with tattoos on them.
Yeah. It was taking them to they're the ones who tattooed it. It was the bureau. They tattoo for. Well, no.
I think they said Caprice tattoos.
Yeah, Caprice tattoos them, yeah.
But they also do tattoos or something as part of the new registry thing.
Yeah, because he makes some jokes at the start about, like, shouldn't we put, like, a traditional, maybe a heart or mum or something. No, but they're basically, like, putting in barcodes or, like, number codes, like, onto them to, like, categorize them or something.
Yeah, he's really upset about it because, it's part of their performance art is that they do tattooing.
Yeah, it's obviously it's all very interesting. All these people are watching this as a show. These other characters have come, as have the two mechanics who were like so excited and geeking out that they had this autopsy machine because it's like not made anymore and they've never worked on one. So they come to the show, and obviously you expect some of this is going to be sexual because it's Cronenberg, and it is, but it's not as much of the movie as I thought it was going to be. It's kind of like a little layer that's in there about how. Mm-hmm. Timlin comes up and says, "Can I ask you a question? This performance art here, this surgery, that's the new sex, right? And I knew that because when I watched her cut into you, I wished you were cutting into me." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, all right." So this is where we're getting some Cronenberg sex stuff. All right.
I mean, it is somebody going inside of another person, so I mean, maybe that's what the connection is there.
Yeah. I mean, and he does seem to be getting some pleasure out of it, as does Caprice. Like they both seem to be getting something out of it. And then there's the more intimate version later.
There's also a moment in this scene where, like, when he's being operated on by his partner, where like Viggo turns his head and licks his lips. Like, yeah, he's definitely getting something out of it.
He's enjoying it, yeah.
Yeah.
And I suppose just to sort of stick on this thread, because I feel like it'll be easier to stick in the threads rather than just go and plot, scene for scene. Is so we see them later. Caprice and Tensor have like an intimate moment. It's when they're discussing what they're going to do with the dead kid later on. But we just cut to a scene where she's lying in the autopsy thing, butt ass naked, right? And he's like operating on her, just doing little cuts and things. And it's clearly, oh no, like this is like their sex, where like, they don't do this as part of the show, but he does it to her as well, just in private, where he'll just do cuts and stuff. And then it gets more intimate, where he takes his clothes off and they're just lying there together in this autopsy machine, and they've just got cuts like up and down them all over the place. This is their coitus, I suppose. And it's like, okay, all right, okay, we're getting like a sense of how things are. I think the most interesting thing for me though, because they do kiss and stuff occasionally, and I was wondering like, oh, what about like traditional sex? And they kind of like bring that up, but clearly some people still do it. But when Timlin tries to initiate a kiss later on with Tensor, with Viggo, like it's kind of awkward, it's kind of stilted, and then he pulls back and he just kind of like, instead of ending, because sometimes like in a movie they'll have a kiss and the scene will end and it'll imply, oh, they probably just went on to do more, they went on to have sex. Here it sort of like ends in this downbeat where he's like, yeah, I'm not really good at the old sex, and then it just cuts to another scene as if, oh, that was it, that was him just killing it dead.
He's got like erectile dysfunction at the end of the scene. So I can't really do it.
I wasn't reading it as literal as erectile dysfunction, but sure.
Well, it's more of an autobiography, isn't it? No, I'm just kidding.
I think I don't know if that's like Cronenberg commenting on like, the way he's made movies have changed a little bit over time, and you can't do it the old ways anymore. Like, cinema's moved on or something. Like,
yeah.
A little bit of that.
Yeah, I mean, you said Timlin kind of represents an audience that maybe is getting the wrong messages from things, and
or if not the wrong message, at the very least, like she clearly is fascinated by what he's doing, and is kind of fangirling over him a little bit. But
definitely, yeah.
But wants something from him that he's not really like. Either he can't give any more, or he's just not comfortable, giving it, or there's definitely a disconnect in like how she views his work. And because when we find out later on that she has secretly done the surgery already on the boy, and we'll talk about all this plot stuff when we go in more in depth to it, but when we find out that she's already done it in secret, you get this kind of idea that she kind of made a bastard job of it. Like she wanted to be like them and do this herself, and she's kind of desecrated and sort of made a mockery of it. And I'm not so much saying that Cronenberg's got an ego to a point where he's like criticizing anyone who's tried to mimic his style over the years, but you could almost read it that way if you wanted to. Like, some copycat came along and tried to do
That's
his
interesting.
art.
I wasn't quite sure if it was her or not that did it. I couldn't, I was kind of hoping to talk about this anyway. It was just like,
Okay.
I wasn't sure when they open up the boy and they see that all the organs are actually pre-tattooed. I wasn't sure if it was Timlin that did it, or if it was Caprice that did it, or even like somebody who just wanted to sabotage, like I don't know, like the other guy that we meet that's in charge of things or something like that.
Yeah, the detective actually says it was her. He
does say it was her.
Yeah, he says it was her that did it. Which when you're watching it a second time and you see her reactions, because she's at this show, this is the last time you see her in the movie.
That's true. And Saul does say, like, I was wondering why she was there, why she would risk being at this performance.
Yeah, because we find out that her and the other guy, Whippet is secretly kind of very pro-evolution, and he's running the secret inner organ beauty pageant thing.
Yeah.
But he's disgusted by it. He's because I get the impression that it wasn't just that they tattooed them already, that they just either not put back his real organs in, or they put back in just random organs, because it was kind of horrific. And because Leah Seydoux, when she sees what's in there, she started, like, the tone of what she's saying in her performance
she
changes.
Really know what to do.
Yeah, she starts talking about how this is like I didn't say tragedy, but she says like words that are kind of in that vein, where she says, oh, this is like awful, and there's going to have to be more autopsies because they've done this to this child. Like, she's not, because their reactions are of, oh, this is the weirder insides we were expecting to find, because this is a kid who, as we find out through the film, he developed naturally a system of organs, and obviously the not the venom or the
Saliva?
the saliva, whatever it is, yeah, that can
The goo.
that can consume and digest plastic. Like that's what he's become. So when they're cutting into him, they're expecting to find, okay, this is going to be like, because it's posed by Timlin at one point in the film, like, what if you didn't cut your organs out, to a tensor, like, if they were all
very aroused by this idea.
Oh yeah, she's really into it. She says, like, what if you let them all grow in? Would they form a system? Would they do something? And because at this point we already know what the kid can do, or the kid could do before he was killed, it makes you think, well, is that what they're like? If he let his organs grow in, would he be able to consume plastic? Like, is that what it's building up to? Is it not just like, okay, some people are developing new organs, but is it just random new organs, or are they actually forming a new system that evolution is deeming necessary for the future, kind of thing? So that's an interesting. We'll get into all the plastic eating stuff in a bit, but it was just because we were talking about Timlin, and I was just like, that's her last big thing, is she did this, like, sort of behind everyone. I mean, she did it with the detective, because the detective, like, he runs the new Vice unit, which is to police new organs, because the powers that be, the governments and the corporations of the world, they don't want humanity to change. They think change is ungodly. They think it's evil. They think it's disgusting and grotesque.
They think we won't be human anymore if we allow ourselves to change into something else.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the main themes of the film as well. It definitely ties into the environmental stuff, but the idea that, there's always going to be a mass of people who see anything different as bad, and that changing is unhealthy. And I think that's part of why I see the ending as happy, is because it's kind of like Viggo's character accepting. Oh, the reason why I've been in pain all this time is because I wasn't accepting the change, whereas now I am, and that's why the pain's finally going away, kind of thing. But we'll get into all the specifics of all the other parts. But we're just, we went down the Timlin rabbit hole.
Yeah, sure. I did really enjoy her character, though. I don't really have a lot of experience with Kristen Stewart. I know you do with her films, but I haven't really watched too many of them. But like, I guess I no longer see her as like the person that's typecast as boring. A boring love interest.
Oh, she was definitely. I think the problem with Kristen Stewart is that for a long time she was very much just the female equivalent to Jesse Eisenberg. Is that she was always the same type of character, right? And not just Bella. Obviously, Bella's the big one, but like she was actually in a movie with, I think it's Adventureland. She's in with Jesse Eisenberg, and they're sort of each other's love interest. And it's like, okay, you know what? I don't really like this, but this is perfect. You're perfect for each other. Like you're perfect. No, I actually liked her in this movie because it felt like a very different role to what I think.
Yeah, I've never seen her do anything quite like this before, and I enjoyed it.
I've heard she was good in a movie. Was it The Shopkeeper? I don't know. The shop something. She was in a movie that was praised.
Personal Shopper.
Personal Shopper. There you go. That's the one. That was praised. I haven't seen it yet, but that was praised quite a bit. My problem with Kristen Stewart for a long time was just that, and I didn't really like the new Charlie's Angels that much. I thought it was just kind of whatever. But I did appreciate that her character in that was so like against her typecast. Like she was the wisecracking, bubbly one, and it was like so different to like every role I'd ever seen her play.
I liked her on Saturday Night Live a lot. I thought she was a really good host.
Oh sure, I've never seen it, but so I appreciate it. It's a relatively small role actually, because she's got.
But it's memorable because it's very much against her type.
Yeah.
When she gets typecast.
Yeah, she's kind of she's like the fan on Reddit who says, I understand this art and I'm going to take ownership of it, but
I see.
But you ballsed it up. I mean, yeah, it's some interesting stuff there. So to go back to like the kid, I suppose we should talk about the kid, because everything kind of revolves around the kid and the justice system and what his dad actually is and what he's up to. Because I think the first time I watched it, I definitely got like they were trying to treat him like he might be a villain, like the dad. Like the first couple of times you see him, the way he kind of like comes into the scenes and like is watching from afar.
Yeah, I mean it's super jarring because like you see a mother kill her kid, presumably. And then you're just like, well, so is she going to jail? And like nothing. She's like, come pick up your kid. I'm like, okay, so that's an admission. So like someone's going to take her away. And like nothing, like he just shows up and starts crying at the end of the bed. And then we see him later on, and you know, he's kind of hiding around and stuff, but it doesn't really look like he's there's any real consequence to, you know, the murder that happened in the opening of the movie. So it's still like you're just trying to put things together like as you're being shown. And you know, it was very helpful in the second viewing anyway.
There's definitely a distinct lack of emotion about it. Obviously he cares for a lot of reasons that his son's been killed, but none of them feel to be emotional as a father. You know,
no, he seems to be excited to exploit his son.
Yeah,
throughout the film.
Maybe you could read into that. You could maybe read into that in a few different ways. But what he's trying to do,
it's really like all those family channels on YouTube and stuff.
I mean, he's got this. Look, he's got a very strong political belief. So him and this group of people that he works with, basically have all done surgery to their bodies to make them consume plastic, right? And what was so special about his son is that he's the first naturally born person who could do this. He was naturally unnatural, as Viggo puts it later in the film. And his mother killed him because she thought it was disgusting and he was a monster and didn't want any part of it. And she just didn't look at him as a human being. So, you know, obviously the ideas of prejudice, the idea of looking at anyone because there's something different about them. You've got all these things. He wants them to do a show with his son's corpse. Basically as a statement to show, look at how natural this happened and that humanity needs to change. So we learned throughout the course of the film and them talking about this that part of the changes in the new organs are because people are adjusting, and what they're trying to sort of, and these purple bars that he's eating are plastic of some kind. Like, I mean, they're making it, they're cooking it, and they're making it. So yeah, I assume that there's more to it than just that, but that's the main thing, is that it's plastic. And the idea being is that this is them eating waste, because, you know, part of the environmental problems is that there's so much plastic in the world and it keeps building up and so on and so on. A subject that Tara knows way more than I do about, but
well, I mean, especially in the oceans and water supply lines, which is why I think there's so much ocean imagery in this film.
Yeah, so the idea that we will adapt to try and solve this problem by then consuming that as our main food source in the future is obviously it's kind of a little bit wacky and it's a little bit weird, but the idea is that it's like, yeah, we have to change and we have to do this and we have to move forward with this. So he wants to show the world that this can be natural and start sort of this process of change. And you know, Viggo's learned a lot about this the first time, and he's even offered one of the bars at one point and says, "No, I'm quite fussy with my food. I'm not going to eat that."
And we see somebody consume and die from eating.
Oh yeah. Anyone who's not had the surgery or naturally has the organs to, you know, I mean, yeah, like, I don't think we could consume plastic if we. I mean, certainly not any concentrated amount of it.
Whatever this plastic is, yeah, it seems very toxic. I mean, we seem to be able to eat microplastics and be okay, but
sure, yeah, like, yeah.
I love the idea of having microplastic in me, but
yeah, so he's got this sort of devout cause, and he wants to display it, and so they're like questioning, should we do this show, and they're ultimately going to, because they're the art of it, right? They see it as provocative, and you know, we're going to find these surprises because this kid is different. And there is this coldness to it, you know, where he brings them over and shows, here's my kid's body in this freezer. It's waiting to be.
Yeah, it's just my son.
Yeah. It's like, well, and like, well, usually, you know, we have full consent of the people involved, because, you know, it's Viggo giving his consent to be cut open and so on. And he's like, well, parental consent. He's not going to say it now, so I give my consent. And the mum's in jail saying, I killed that monster. I'm happy I killed that monster. So she doesn't give a shit what we do with the corpse. So.
And the kid doesn't care because he's dead.
Yeah, so, like, there's a logic to it, but it does come off as quite cold. And it's like, okay, they're going to go through with this, and these ideas are very interesting. And I think the ending of the movie, the idea being that, you know, we see that Dotrice, the father, is assassinated at the end of the film after the show. And when Viggo talks to the cop, who he's been kind of working for as like a informant for, you know, since before the movie started, we find this out earlier on. He kind of says in this scene that he's starting to believe in picking a side here. Like, he actually starting to believe that, yeah, like, this natural change that he's been kind of resisting with his body all this time, like, yeah, you made a martyr over killing this guy, and maybe that's exactly what the cause needs. And, you know, the cop even sort of says, hey, it sounds like you're starting to believe some of this. And I think the ending to me is a happy ending where he finally tries. He's in the chair, he's struggling to eat his breakfast, and they did a good job making this look. It's just like a green paste. It looks like this disgusting, like, I don't know, just like crushed up some vegetables and just.
Yeah, I mean, even the spoon that's used to feed him with looks like something you do with a baby, like a big old spoon. Like, go on. They're like, no, I don't want to eat it.
Yeah, I mean, you can almost like look at the technology they're using as kind of a critique as well of, you know, if you try. I mean, it's obviously it's environmental, but it's slightly different. It's climate change. I would say that one of the things that I thought of is where we're seeing this chair and stuff is this idea that instead of actually solving the problem that's causing all this pain or understanding the problem, we're just constantly sort of like, you know, like patching up the effects of it, the symptoms, right? So there's a whole industry's developed to like help with this pain when there's just a solution to eradicating it in the first place, you know, kind of thing. Right. I think that's part of human nature, and I was kind of getting some of those vibes from that. But he finally decides to try this plastic bar at the end. And it's after he spent the night, like he fell out of his bed and he's on the floor just in pain. And like she wakes up and sees him like that, and she's like, oh, like how does the pain feel? What is it like? And so if the idea the whole time that was interesting at the start of the movie is that the pain, human pain, by and large, is a warning system that something is wrong, that you need to change something. You know, the most typical thing in modern day we'd say is you feel some pain, you go to the doctor because something might be wrong, right? That's the most basic principle. That's what it is, right?
Yeah, infection or burns or cuts, anything. Yeah.
So you feel some pain, go to the doctor because something's wrong, and he finally takes the warning and he says, okay, if this is where humanity's going, is we're actually evolving quickly to deal with the fact that we're creating all this plastic waste, I'm going to try this plastic. And I like the choice, because we see Caprice filming some stuff on this little camera ring early on in the film, really early on, but I think it's in color the first time you see it, but this final moment where it switches to the feed from her camera ring, and it's in black and white, and it's this close-up of Viggo's face where he finally stops writhing in pain and finally goes still.
And the chair stops too, because it detects that he no longer is in pain.
Yeah, as he stops feeling pain, and the final shot of the movie in black and white is him shedding a single tear and just forming a kind of a half smile, and it's a really sweet kind of like ending. You know, you really feel this like moment of relief finally, that he finally understands and has accepted who he is. And you know, you could apply this to anything where someone's not accepting who they are and they finally do, and you know that. Yeah,
I was picking up on kind of like a trans message in this too, like just not feeling comfortable in your own body, and people telling you what you can and can't do with it, and the
idea that the government and the political forces in this world are trying to like stop it, and they're trying to like say no, this is all an abomination, you can't do it, all that kind of stuff.
Instead just sit in this weird bone chair and deal with it.
Yeah, there's definitely some of that. There's definitely these ideas of like us having to adapt, and if we don't adapt by choice, then evolution and biology will do it over time for us. And like, and obviously it's ridiculous and over the top, this idea that we'll eventually start to be able to consume plastic, but that's kind of the point of the movie, is that you turn it up to 11 and you go more extreme with it, kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine there's obviously plastic waste is a huge thing that we're dealing with. Mostly the cutting off the symptoms would be, or not dealing with the symptoms of it, and instead cutting it off at the source would be better. Like, let's just not create new plastic unless it's absolutely necessary. It would be ideal. So that we don't have this Soylent Green future where we're forced to adapt ourselves to consume our own waste, plastic waste. Yeah,
the movie's very much like a consequential war. Obviously, the title of the movie, I think, is more about what's considered a crime in this future rather than the crimes that have led to this future existing. But You know, I do think the movie in some ways is meant to be a consequence of some of that, and obviously it does have a lot of heart though. There's a lot of like human connection and questions of like human intimacy in this, and you know, you get a lot of that with Viggo and Leah Seydoux' characters and like their intimacy, and I like how they play off of each other, where there's definitely times where like maybe they don't see eye to eye, where she seems maybe a little jealous at one point maybe of like Timlin's attention, you know, towards him. He doesn't seem necessarily thrilled when she's like taking this step to like get this little like, I don't even know what you'd call it.
Shoes in her head.
Yeah, she goes to this other performance artist who's basically like sculpted scars into her face to form a design.
She's a model.
Yeah.
And yeah, she's using her body to like be cut into and be uglier.
Yeah.
In her words.
Yeah, and she's like tempted by this to like, you know, like cut her own skin and like do something, and she ends up with these little bumps going across her forehead. And his reaction to that like does seem a little apprehensive at first. You know, it's like, I kind of appreciate that it never feels like it's them like falling apart and like the relationship is crumbling, but there's a very understandable and natural kind of instant reaction to some of the things that they do on their own, and it's like, oh, what have you done? Like, I need to try and process this and understand it. And likewise when he goes and gets like a zipper put in his stomach. That's a random scene, which gets very sexual when she opens it and gets down on her knees and kind of like starts to just...
It's very much just fellatio. Don't let it spill.
Yes.
That was a good line. It was very, very cringe. The movie I thought actually was pretty tame on its grotesqueness, but this scene I thought was actually pretty grotesque. It was gross.
I thought the bin eating was worse, but you know, that's just maybe what particularly...
The which part?
The bin eating, the plastic eating at the start, I thought was worse.
Oh yeah.
But that's
I don't know. Leah Seydoux like opening up his stomach and like sticking her face in his open flesh and like organs was pretty gross.
Yeah,
it was pretty nasty.
Yeah, the other element of the film, of course, is the two like mechanic ladies who come to like fix up the bed and the chair, and then they let them take a look at this, you know, fancy autopsy table or like device that they use. I'd basically describe it as, you know how like in like Prometheus. Yeah, Prometheus. Like, you've got the
strong Prometheus vibes.
Yeah, you've got the operating table that, well, it doesn't have Prometheus vibes. That was just...
I don't know. I thought like the it's almost like a sea creature, like with the like an exoskeleton of an insect or something.
Oh, sure.
I think sort of designs like that in the Prometheus ship, but I know you mean the autopsy table.
Yeah, I just mean the idea that it's a self-operating thing. That, I mean, it is being controlled by someone at a control pad, but like, the idea you've got these like arms coming in and doing like the lasering and cutting and whatever. But these two characters are very interesting and weird, because it turns out by the end that they're actually like assassins who are part of the anti like evolution, or whatever you want to call it, anti moving forward with humanity, because they assassinate first of all the doctor who's part of like the inner beauty pageant or whatever it's called. They come and assassinate him for his part in it. They assassinate the dad at the end, but they're also like super enthusiastic about all this machinery. And there's also one scene that I honestly don't know how to decipher. I'm sure you know what scene I'm talking about.
Get naked in it?
Yeah, well, it's like just they get naked on their own. Like Caprice is there and she's got her back turned and she's like looking at some devices or whatever, and they're like working on the autopsy table behind her, and they just all of a sudden take their overalls off, and like they've planned to be naked because they're not wearing anything else underneath their overalls, right? They just take their overalls off and they're full frontal, and then when Caprice turns around, they're both lying together in the autopsy machine, and they're like, "Hey, could we be performance artists?" And Caprice laughs and says, "Yeah, I think you might have what it takes," or something like that. And then it just cuts to the next scene. And given where it goes with those two characters and what they become, what it turns out they are, I am honestly, I don't know how to interpret that scene. I don't know what it means.
Maybe it is gratuitous. I don't know. Maybe it's just a little something for everybody.
I mean,
it's not really a very sexy scene, though. It's
not. It's one of those weird like things in a movie where it's like very nude, but it's not necessarily very erotic. It's just like,
yeah.
But you know, it is full frontal. It's two full frontal ladies, like, you know, getting into a
a walnut.
No, that's the actual bed. This is more of a sauna, I would say. That's the autopsy thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So imagine two people lying in an autopsy. Imagine two people lying in a sauna bed together, is what I'm trying to say.
A sauna bed.
In terms of like size, in terms of like how much room there is, so they're kind of hunched together.
Yeah. Okay.
Like there was logic to it in my head. So I don't know how to interpret this. I mean, honestly, these two other than representing the powers that be that are trying to stop, like, you know, like evolution and advancement and stuff like that. Like, I don't know how to interpret these two, especially in the artistic like themes of the film, because obviously we've talked about that a little bit. I think there's more to even talk about with like how everything represents something if you look through it that lens, where this idea of the artist, and I think when you take the ending literally, like I like my interpretation of what I said earlier about, you know, he finally like is accepted going forward, and that's why the character's arc is done and why he's happy. When I look at that ending through the lens of this is him about him, like Cronenberg talking about his art, what does this ending actually represent? Is this him finally accepting change?
Maybe,
I don't know.
maybe this is what I mean when I say that I don't really think that the two themes that are running throughout this film really like mesh very well. I think there's a bit of a disconnect where maybe I just need another scene or something where things make a little bit more sense as to what your message is on this film. Because I also don't think that I don't know how to interpret the ending as like obviously to the character that this is a very good thing. This is a positive change for humanity for the future. If we just allow evolution to happen, allow what's natural to take over, and we can clean up our mess and be able to live and be comfortable in our own bodies and stuff like that. But it's also kind of a dour message of like, if we don't stop screwing up things, then we're going to have to like find a way to eat our own waste in the future in order to survive.
It's kind of that. I think it's positive in the context of the movie, because in the movie, like obviously the movie as a whole is kind of a warning sign, right? It absolutely is. But I think in the context of the movie, it's happy because, well, the problems are just going to get worse if humanity refuses to accept this natural solution that is now being presented to it, you know? So I think it is happy in the context of the movie, although obviously the movie as a whole is definitely like, yes.
I guess if you look at Saul as not just the artist but the art, you know, well, I was going somewhere with this, but I lost it. But I don't know. Maybe this is the ending is that his art finally knows what it is. I don't know, man. I'm done. I have no idea. I can't make this work.
No, I'm trying to think about the ending in the context of the art lens, because let's think about this. So this character is an artist who literally, like, his art comes from the inside. It causes him pain. Everyone's taking a piece of him every time, or he's giving away a piece of himself every time he makes like a movie, say, right? And that's, you know, what the organs kind of represent.
Leo Seydoux represents the producers, making our own stamp on it.
You're marking it up. Stop it. You're marking it up. No, so he like, so it gives a piece of himself every time he makes a movie, and the idea that maybe if this is the end of his career, he's accepting that he's not going to do that anymore, and that now all the pieces of him are now his, that he's not going to give them up anymore. And the ending, it's not so much about him eating the plastic so much as it's like, now that he's accepting that he's not giving himself away, he can finally be content and rest, right? So, you know, the worries of making more, the worries of, you know, the pressures are now going. I don't know, maybe I'm reaching here, but
I wonder if we haven't talked about the ear guy yet, really.
Was I on one scene? It's not.
Well, yeah. So like, but the scene is that we get to see somebody else who's doing this type of performance art where they're using their own body. This guy is just covered in ears. But they did get like a contortionist and dancer to do this part, so it is like a beautiful scene. But like the criticisms that we hear from people who don't have the same for Saul's work are, well, there's no purpose, there's no meaning to it. Like the ears aren't functioning; they're just decorative, so it's all kind of meaningless.
He calls it
maybe. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say he calls it escapism, and like the woman that's talking to him even says that, don't tell him I said this, but he's actually better at just the dancing. So, which, if you compare that to a movie, the idea is that, they're good at the visual effects, they're good at the special effects and the eye candy, but it's not really what makes. There's no substance.
Yeah. So maybe like Saul at the end, realizing what his body is actually doing, now that it has a purpose, now that he knows that his art should actually take a side. Maybe now that that's like the reason for it, he's crying with joy because like now he has produced art that really does mean something, and it means what the resistance group was trying to do with their son.
I like this actually. No, I think you're onto something here. So basically, the idea being that like her saying that to him when he's criticizing, saying it's escapism and saying that the ears have no purpose, then maybe internally in some way he's worried that, well, do my organs that I'm producing have a purpose? Like, is it just fluff as well? And I'm hoity-toity, I think my art's better, but are the things I'm producing in my body, are they of actually any value? So maybe if you look at it through the artist lens, it's the idea of, do my films actually mean something? Are they just fluff, or are they something that actually benefits the world? So maybe you could read the ending as him finally accepting that, all my organs, all the films I've produced have meant something to people. And that's why, if you look at it through the artist theme and the artist lens, that's why he's finally at peace, because he's accepting that people do actually care about his work.
We got there, man. We did it. We made it make sense.
I honestly, I think that's a good interpretation. For looking at it through that lens, I think that's a good interpretation of the ending. Okay,
we did it.
Yeah. And for the record, I did have a quick look to see what other people said about the ending, and almost everything I looked at was only talking about it literally. No one was like trying to interpret it from like what does this mean in the context of like him representing Cronenberg himself and the organs being his movies, or
there's
anything like
so
that.
much of that throughout the whole film that you can't just ignore it at the end. Like it's got to be there somewhere, right? So.
Yeah, because we talked about this a lot with like Close Encounters and how that was kind of like Spielberg talking about making art.
I was thinking about that a lot actually during our discussion.
but this is Cronenberg doing the same thing. But unlike Spielberg, that was Spielberg's like second movie. This is Cronenberg's like, I mean, it may not be his last, but we're towards the end of his career. He's been making movies since the 70s, right? Maybe even the end of the 60s.
Yeah, but I mean, like I said, this script was written like 20 years ago, and apparently he didn't change it very much, according to him. Yeah,
but even 20 years ago, he'd already been making movies for 30 years. Like, he'd already had a long career. The point I'm making here is that this is the perspective of someone at the end of the artist's life cycle. This is someone who is maybe questioning, as we were just saying, questioning, did my work, was it worth something? And maybe that's why he didn't make it for a while. Maybe he wanted to save it until it was like truly, like he felt it was coming towards the end of his career. Yeah, I mean, it does make more sense to view this, self-portrait in a way as a, reflection on his entire body of work, which I have not seen. Although I do like him in Discovery. Oh, as an actor, sure, yeah. I do, because I wonder if the whole idea of like, I'm not good at the old sex, that's him saying, I'm not good at traditional movies. I don't make Jaws. I don't.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah, not as a critique of those movies, but just like I can't do that. Like that's just never been my thing. I make Cronenberg movies,
Yeah.
Which again makes sense, I think, in the context of like, I think you could be right in saying that maybe the two main things, because they're both definitely there. The environmental message about humanity and the look at art, like, do they mesh together? Does it feel like they kind of coexist together and form a cohesive whole? That's maybe the one critique you could maybe levy at it, because I'm not really sure if they do. I like both of them though, and I think they both work really well. So ultimately, I don't have much of a problem with it. But if you tell me that they feel very separate, like I can't really argue with you right now, because I haven't really thought of a way to make them work together.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, they feel like two separate things in the film. I could see how they work together in the plot and in the world that they live in. But it's just, I don't know. There is something I feel that's just kind of, I'm not where he wants me to be with this film, I just accept it all. Let's still
try.
A bit of a struggle.
Let's try and connect them. So, if you think about the relationship of art and the purpose of art, right, and the purpose of escapism and art having like meaning, right? In the context of this film, the art is going to be used as a message to try and to provoke and to change opinions and make people realize that this is where we're going, this is where we need to go as a people. So if you sort of think about the idea of like, Cronenberg's always had messages in his movies. Most like serious like directors and writers and artists do have messages in their work. It's kind of like part of what art is. Maybe the point of him, like, maybe it's not important what the message is specifically, but the idea that he wanted to tie it to a political message in the film, because so much of his movies and art is about trying to put a message into it and like taking a stance on a subject. So there had to be a stance for the character to have between two things in the film. So, and you can still argue it doesn't mesh perfectly together, but I'm thinking it through and try to see that's why it has both rather than just the one.
Yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying. It's maybe I just need to do a few more watches through time, and eventually I'll be like, you know what, that's his best work or something. But
it does
not
feel
quite there yet. But I definitely don't think it's a bad movie. I think it's a good movie, and everybody should watch it. It's definitely a challenge, I'd say. Like, some things are very obvious in the film. You're like, oh, I get what this is saying. And then other things I'm just like, ooh, I'm not following this very well.
Which isn't necessarily...
I think I see everything that's happened and I've heard everything, but I'm not making the connections that I think the director's intending.
Well, I mean, David Cronenberg's films have always been like kind of like that, where not every layer is necessarily obvious on a first or even second viewing. They're kind of like, you're encouraged to kind of dig deep in, try and think about it, and maybe even to some extent come up with your own interpretations and what it's saying. And I think this is a movie that will, the more you watch it, probably be more fruitful, because it does have all these things, and enough of it is there on the first viewing that you kind of get the broad strokes of what it's saying. The emotional beats of the ending, I do think, land on a first viewing, but then, on the second viewing, I was noticing more little things that were hinting towards these themes, and I was noticing more direct little lines and things early on. Because when you're first watching a movie, you haven't necessarily quite got what the key point of it is yet. You're sort of discovering it as the movie's unfolding. So when you watch it a second time and you're like, okay, I know what the movie is now, you start to see the signs clearer earlier on that were maybe not obscure, but like just not as like in your face the first time. And it does make it a rewarding experience, because you sort of, it is a complete sort of thought out work that is working towards like one key idea the whole time. So
yeah, I mean, I look forward to revisiting it in the future, and I own it now, so I will. But I mean, overall, I think it's still a really great experience, because it's just so unique. And it is a bit of a challenge to piece some of the stuff together, but that can make a movie experience fun. Like, give me a challenge. And definitely, like, the performances are amazing in this film. Like, I think everyone's really great just to watch, and they all give it their all. I think Viggo, like, really stands out in this film.
Yeah, I like the performances. I talked about the kind of the nuances in the relationship that I kind of appreciate, both in the performances and the writing, where it doesn't just feel like a typical movie couple, which I think works. Mm-hmm. I think the movie's great. Like, it left me thinking. I was getting this like the world felt heavy. It felt burdened with these questions, right from the get go, and the music's a big part of that. The first time that heavy main theme comes in, when it cuts to like them leaving the building, or actually the first time is I think when the dad finds the body, but like when that music comes in, the world feels heavy, and you feel like this is a world where people need to figure something out because something's not quite right. Like, everything feels very nihilistic, and in a way where people have all turned to performance art because they're looking to feel something, because they're not feeling it from other things. and something's not working, it's a warning sign, much like pain. There's lots of warning signs as to why the world's not quite right. And I think the movie, it's a warning about some of the things that it's taking from the real world, but it's also saying, don't be afraid to adapt and change in ways, don't, like, just because I think there's multiple reactions to their art in this film, and some of them are like fascinated and they're happy with that reaction and they're happy to provoke and make people think, but then you have other reactions that take the wrong things from it and sort of almost fetishize it in a way that's unhealthy. I'd sort of say Kristen Stewart's character maybe goes into that kind of territory. Mm-hmm. But then alternatively, you have like the powers that be that we never see. We have this police officer kind of character, but we never really see the higher ups that are making these choices. But you just get this feeling that no, the powers that be want to stop any evolution. They want to stop any change. They don't like different. They've never liked different. They want to make things stay the same. So they're going to fund companies that make devices that convince people they can keep doing things the old way. But they can't.
Actually, I enjoyed the detail of the tattooing just as an extension. In a weird way, like, it seems unnecessary in the movie, but it kind of grounds it to reality, because tattoos are a way that people use their body as like art, as a canvas, or as... So it made sense that it was in it, even though, like, when it was in the movie, like, why would they need to tattoo, like skulls on this organ or something?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Tattoos in the real world aren't needed for anything. They're purely a, aesthetic choice. It's purely an artistic expression.
It made it feel like it was still, even though this is a weird future, it made it feel like it was more grounded in our own reality, in our future, if that makes sense.
It did feel
just by including the tattoos in there. Yeah,
in fact, one scene that I think we haven't talked about is so he goes back to the bureau at one point to talk to Whippet, and it turns out that Whippet's actually the guy who registers people who are getting into this contest, and he's not meant to do this. This is illegal. He shouldn't be doing this, but he cares about these organs. He cares about evolution, and he wants to display the beauty of them. And there's a moment here that I thought was really interesting, where again it was kind of like Cronenberg discussing like some people reject his films, and so there's a moment here where Whippet, he obviously is very appreciative of and really worships Tensor in a lot of ways, but he does say, I mean, the one caveat is you do cut them out. You take these beautiful new things that grow in you and you remove them. Some people definitely who go to this like inner beauty pageant won't love that idea, and it basically scares Viggo off, where he says, oh, maybe you're right, maybe I don't belong there, maybe I'd have to fake it, maybe I don't have any ideas. And we actually know that's not true. We've already heard in other scenes that he's got multiple organs growing.
I mean, he knows, because the bed can't compensate when he's growing something
exactly
new.
The bed's confused. There's too much to compute. But he's ready to walk away, and immediately Whippet says, no, please, no, we need you, like, you're an important part of this, and we'll make it work. And I kind of felt like this idea that sometimes as an artist, you're not always on, you're not always in your artist mode where you're there to sell your art. Sometimes it's a bit too commercial, or it's a bit too think of a director or an actor having to go and do a press circuit where they're having to talk about the movie day in, day out for a few weeks as it's been promoted and when it's getting released. And it's a bit of an easy comparison. It's not, I think, as nuanced as it should be for this, but that idea that sometimes you're not always there for it, and that if you're going to force me into your system, if you think of this inner beauty pageant as say the Oscars or some sort of traditional movie appreciation kind of event, the idea that I have to conform, you're just saying that I stand out, I don't really fully belong in this. And maybe you could take the ending as Cronenberg saying as well, he's finally eating the plastic and keeping his organs. It's not him conforming to the way movies are done, but it's accepting that he's equally a part of it and that he's helped build what movies are now, or something like that. I
think he's just embracing the weird also.
He is also embracing the weird. He's always embracing the weird. But I do think he's embracing the weird with a bit of a message, as opposed to just weird for weird's sake. I don't know, Donnie Darko or something. I don't really remember much Donnie Darko, but I saw Southland Tales, and trust me, weird for weird's sake is definitely
yeah,
thing.
this is not Upstream Color, which is a terrible
How
film.
dare you? No, Upstream Color is not bad.
It's a terrible film.
No,
terrible.
it's not bad. It's not
Don't
as good.
watch it.
It's not as good as Primer, but it's not bad. I refuse
it's
to.
bad.
I refuse to agree with that. How dare you?
It's a bad movie.
How dare you? But no, I thought it was an interesting conversation he has with them, and how he's like, he almost leaves and then he sort of comes crawling to him to come back. This idea that there's always people who like boo or walk out of a Cronenberg film, but can always invite them back. They always want more Cronenberg. You know?
Well, he's got a unique vision. You know, he is a true artist, and he does put his inside out there on the table for everyone to gawk at, and it is grotesque and beautiful at the same time. So,
oh yeah, I was thinking of so Joe when like Timlin, like we find out she's done the other surgery, and you know it's kind of a bastardization because she's done it for the government or for the police, and they've done whatever they've done to the kid. I was kind of thinking like, okay, so this is like him talking about like imitators and copycats, and it's not so much that you say, you know, I think Cronenberg would be very encouraging to anyone to be an artist or be a filmmaker, but it's like be a filmmaker that is you rather than just try to be Cronenberg too. And I was thinking a little bit about the fact that his son's now a director, and I think what I would say is that having seen his film Possessor is that while we compared it to his father because it's extreme, arguably more extreme than his father's ever been, it did distinctly
that
feel...
was a very uncomfortable film, yeah.
But it did distinctly feel different, though. Like, it didn't feel like David Cronenberg. It felt like, you know what, I get that you're a Cronenberg, but you don't feel like him. Like, you do, it does feel different. Whereas, and I think it felt more so when I came back to this film, and I was like, no, this feels like David Cronenberg again. Like, there's a distinct difference between David and his son.
Oh, yeah.
Brandon
totally.
Cronenberg. I was trying to remember his first name. Brandon.
Cronenberg Jr. He's not a junior, but yeah.
Yes, so...
Yeah, those Canucks, they're pretty grotesque people, I guess.
Yeah, but they're very different in terms of what they're provoking, I think, even though they both deal with, like, you know, violence and sex and things like that. But there's...
Oh, yeah, totally. I see what you mean. Like, there are definitely similarities of the subjects that they're willing to tackle and how far they're willing to push it. But they're very different in style, I'd say.
There was very, I mean, there was some body horror, but it wasn't like this, like, fleshy horror that Cronenberg does. Cronenberg does a lot of fleshy things.
Yeah, Cronenberg does a lot of, you know, he's kind of Giger-esque. It's very, you know, it's a lot of just the human body, but mutations or something extended from that. It's things that are very biological and organic. Like he's kind of obsessed with the human body, and I'd say that from what I've only seen Possessor, I haven't seen anything else that he's done. Brandon Cronenberg, I'm not sure if he has done anything else, but his movie was more like, there is body horror, but it's more of just like the horror of having something happen to you that's not fantastical, like in David's work.
Yeah. I really liked it. I thought it was thought-provoking. I thought it looked great. I thought it sounded great. I always felt immersed in the world, and it did make me think about what it was saying, and I was never bored. I was never remotely bored by anything. I was always...
Actually goes by pretty quickly. It's not the longest movie, but it definitely flies by.
Yeah, it's about an hour 45 or something like that. It's not like, you know, I would say it's super short either, but it's not long. Yeah, it's I would recommend it. It's definitely not something that everyone's going to love. If you are someone who just likes a Marvel movie, then I would stay far away. You're not going to get much out of this.
Enjoy your ear dancer. No, I love the new Marvel movie. What am I talking about? I went and saw it in theaters. It was great.
Yeah.
Love and Thunder, baby. Woo. It's
Maybe
like a heavy metal cartoon, but PG. It's fun.
Yeah, maybe I'll watch it someday. I don't know. I'm in no rush.
Oh, please. Mr. Too High and Mighty now for Marvel movies.
I'm not too high and mighty, but like I've still not watched the last one.
Because you don't like Doctor Strange.
True, but I don't know.
And you don't like Sam Raimi for some reason.
I don't have
even
much.
though he's a unique filmmaker also.
You can be unique and me not like you.
Yeah.
And for the record, for anyone who doesn't know the full brunt of that, I do like the Evil Dead movies, but I discovered over the last like 5 or so years that everything Sam Raimi's directed that isn't Evil Dead, I don't like. So, you know, that's what it is. Anyway, I really like Crimes of the Future. I think it scratched an itch. It's one of my favorite movies that I've seen this year, I think. I don't know where it'll rank when
Wait till you see Men.
the year's out.
You're gonna hate it though.
Am I going to hate Men?
Actually, I don't know. I don't know what you'll feel about it. I know you'll hate the ending.
Okay.
But then you'll go, but I like art house stuff, so how am I going to interpret this?
I don't know. There's some broad strokes been painted here about art house fans, I think, in some of your comments, and I don't think I appreciate it.
Well, I think you need to get off your high horse a little bit. And stop poo-pooing people who enjoy your Dancer Man, okay?
I'm not poo-pooing anything. I'm just bored of the Marvel movies. I'm just bored of them. That's all it is.
Every time I think I'm bored, they come out with a new one, and I'm like, no, I liked it. It was fun.
And and I'm not really excited about the new one. A, because the reviews are very middling, but also because I've actually read the comics it's based on, and it's not like a funny like story at all.
No.
So I'm not. I don't.
Funny.
I don't think I like the idea of it being turned into a comedy, but you know, whatever. It's
whatever. Whatever, man. All right, I'm gonna give my final thoughts and
sure, so yes, by all means, final thoughts and rating.
I like the movie. It's definitely not one of my favorites that I've seen this year, but like it's still like very unique, very very cool film. Just excited to get a new Cronenberg. Also, I think it's been a little while, and I'm going to give it a 6.5. Very provocative film. Very.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Worth watching.
Did you say 6.5? Is that what you just said?
Yeah.
Okay, it's a bit lower than I thought you were going to go. I was that's that thing where I was sort of zoning out, and I thought, did you say 6.5?
Yeah, 6.5. I mean, it might. It's very possible that my rating will increase on more viewings, but as of right now, that's where I am. All
right, well, now that mainstream Tara's given her rating, I will give the art house fans respect. I don't really want to be considered the art house fan, though. I'm only cracking that joke because you like to make all your high horse jokes.
Yeah.
I watched School of Rock yesterday.
You, that's all.
I watched School of Rock yesterday and I had a blast. I like plenty of light-hearted films.
Yes, when you were like a kid, you like your kids' movies. We all do that.
I like new light-hearted film. I liked what's come out recently? I don't know.
It's fine. What do you like about this film? Wrap it up. Rating.
I mean, I like it. I like pretty much everything. I can kind of see that maybe the two big themes of the film don't necessarily mesh that much, but everything in the movie works for both of them so well that I'm not even sure if I mind. I thought it was an experience. I wasn't mad that I had to watch it again a few days later because we had to delay the record and then we realized we should probably just watch it again because it's got a lot of thoughtful things in it. So when I was watching it a second time, I was like, oh, I'm captivated again. Like, if anything more so, because like I'm sort of looking at the details a bit more because I know what the movie's kind of poking at. Performances are great. It looks and sounds great. I'm just into it. I'm not going to go super high yet, but it could grow over time. I think I'm comfortable in saying this is an 8.5 for me. I think it's one of the most interesting and thought-provoking films of the year. And I'm glad we finally got around to being able to do it. So
me too.
Crimes of the Future. That is David Cronenberg. And we've got another new release coming. I say next week, but technically it'll be later this week by the time this goes out because this one's late. And that is Everything Everywhere All at Once. Is that the title?
Yeah, I think there's an and in it.
Okay.
Everything Everywhere and All at Once.
Okay. I didn't have it in front of me. I was just saying it from memory because I knew that's what we were doing next. But then I realized, shit, I may not get the title exactly right. But yes, this is
this one.
This is the multiverse movie that came out. So,
well, I already saw that one. It was called Doctor Strange.
This is the multiverse movie that came out that I want to see.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this. You know, I'm a big fan of Shell Yo. I've heard that this is quite a showcase for her acting, so I'm excited to see what she can do.
It's had relatively good buzz. You know, I've heard people be quite positive on it. So,
and Short Round's in it, but like, he's an adult.
Well, obviously, he's older than we are. He was a kid.
He took a long break from acting. That's all.
A very long break. Our entire lifetime.
Yeah, pretty much.
So that's what's coming up next time. Tara, why don't you plug? Actually, I should probably plug a little bit because the Patreon is just changing. I'll put an announcement out. And Tara,
yeah, why don't you take over this one just so I don't screw it up?
Yeah. Okay, it's changed a little bit. Not too different, but yeah, if you want to support the show, you can hit the super thanks button below the video on YouTube. You can obviously go to patreon.com/MailFestTV. Things have shaken up, but the good news is there's an extra thing coming your way, particularly an extra thing that has Tara in it. So you might be particularly incentivized. So
me? I might be incentivized.
You love
You're
the
not getting my money.
You love the sound of your own voice. You know you do.
I do. I know it's not great, but it's all I got.
So yeah, if you go to Patreon, you can support us for however much you want. But the tiers have changed a little bit. It's not too much different. But now the low tier is $3, and that gets you access to the bonus episode every month, as well as the bonus episode of Screams After Midnight, the horror movie podcast that I do with Tim. At the $5 tier, you get access you get early access to the show by a day. That's one of the main perks for this show, as well as other shows. But you also now get access to another monthly show at that tier called Movie Meltdown. Something's went wrong in the lab, and we're overflowing with movies. So it's basically the sister show to Even More Streams, which is a show where me and Tim get together and we just talk about whatever other horror movies we've been watching that month. Just small, spoiler-free, and we have some fun and do some goofy stuff as well. That's basically going to be the same with us, except we're with one twist on it, which is that we're not going to do it with sci-fi movies. We're going to talk about everything but sci-fi movies. So it's basically where you'll hear us talk about just whatever movies we've been watching. It's going to be a casual show once a month, talking about whatever weird, random, or just normal movies we've been watching. So
try to keep up.
So if you want to hear us talk about random action movies, comedies, dramas, thrillers,
made for TV movies starring Dean Stockwell.
Tara watches a lot of weird shit, so you probably get a lot of that. I won't talk about horror movies on the show because I obviously have a horror show that I've got a complete outlet for. But Tara may talk about horror if she's watched any. So,
well, Joe Bob ended his season, so I'll be watching less than I usually do.
There you go. See, so that's in the $5 tier, starting in August, right? So that the first episode of that'll be in August, just for clarification's sake. Yes, and then the $10 tier is the voting tier for everything. You get to vote once a month on an Ace episode, you get to vote once a month on a Streams episode, you get to vote once a month on the priority of the pilots that I review on the TV channel. That's the new structure. There'll be a big post on Patreon explaining all this as well. But it just occurred to me that I was going to make Tara do the Patreon plug, and it's I mean, the main
I have to relearn it.
The main thing is that it's like there's two bonus shows. One's at $3, one's at $5. That's the two important. That's the two juiciest things that you need to mention.
Okay.
That's the two juicy things.
We haven't done RoboCop, and now I can't do the I'd buy that for $1.
I'm sorry. Inflation is a thing. I'm sorry. We had it $1 for 5 years. Yeah. Although it's worth mentioning, just in case you're hearing this for the first time, anyone who was at $1 is grandfathered at that price and doesn't have to go up. You can stay at $1 forever. If that's all you want to do, that's fine. And if you want to just donate $1 and not get anything, you can do that too if you want. Like, that's an option. Yeah.
You'll still get our appreciation.
Yeah, any and all support is obviously wonderful, and we thank everyone.
All the names tattooed on my heart, but you won't be able to see it.
And with that said, I should thank our Patreon producers for the month, which is also a tier. So thank you very much to Tyler Hess, Cindy Palacios, David Short, Board Now, Christopher Moy, David Brown, Al Tradesman, and Alison M. Fordyce. Thank you all to everyone for being Patreon producers. Okay. I think I'm done. Is there anything I can make you plug instead? Plug the TV stuff we do together. Go on.
Yeah, if you guys enjoy us talking about science fiction stuff, then you can check out on the TV channel, Mild Fuzz TV, and you can watch us talk about Babylon 5. We're working through the series, almost done, and Twilight Zone, which we are on the 4th season of. We've also done a bunch of the new Star Treks. We finished Strange New Worlds, so if you're curious about our thoughts on that, that's all up for you. And head on over, check that out. Thank you.
So it's just the way you started that with, yeah.
Yep.
All right, there you go. That is the episode. That is Crimes of the Future. Thank you very much for joining us. Hopefully, some of our trying to interpret the movie's meanings was entertaining, if not somewhat thoughtful and insightful. I hope a little bit. But yeah, let us know what you think of the movie and your thoughts on what the movie's about in the comments below. Like, subscribe, ding the bell, all that stuff. Get us on the Twitters at Streams Midnight for notifications and things like that. But yeah, that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching science fiction and computer at Salsa.